I have to apologize in advance for my voice. We had our party last night. It was fun, but it ended quite late. So just so you know where I'm coming from with what I'm going to present here today, and as she said, I had very little time to prepare for this. But I've been doing this for 4 years, working with different global apps to acquire, convert, and retain users within their mobile apps literally all over the world. So hopefully, even though I had just a day to prepare, my knowledge comes from those 4 years. My colleague usually presents app retargeting for dummies, and I said that could sound a bit sexist, so I fixed it. So we're assuming, if we're talking retention, that you've managed to get people to download your app. Points for you, because that is very hard, and that can be super expensive. So that is a celebration in itself. But the truth is, a lot of these downloads do not convert. They don't convert for a million reasons, mostly because people will try apps, but they're not necessarily going to stick with them. There's so much time they spend on their phone. There's so much space on their phone. And in general, unlike websites, which is what we did before on desktop, where you could bring a user back to the website, if a user downloads your app and doesn't like it and deletes it, the odds of them actually giving you a second chance are very low. So it's really important to get it right when you actually get people on your app. The good news is there's different things you can do about it to make sure that you don't lose those users once they install your app. The first thing is what Stephanie talked about. It's the product. You need to make sure you have a killer product. You need to make sure you're solving a problem for the user, that you're doing it the right way, that your app is relevant for each of them, and that you've got a team in place to actually make sure the service, not just the product's right. That's number one. And don't bother doing too much acquisition or anything unless you've got that right. Otherwise, it's a waste of money and a waste of your time. The second thing you can do is you can leverage all of your channels to talk to those users. Try and bring them back. So if a user installed your app and then they forgot to check it again, they haven't really given you a chance yet to actually show the service and the product that you have for them. So you try and communicate with them by reaching out to them on email, sending them push notification. But push notification itself, you might be sending it at the wrong time. They might have turned it off. So you're not necessarily bringing them back in. The third thing you can do, which is what we do, so which is what I'm going to cover today, hopefully give you some insights, is actually use other apps to reach out to that user. So you use ads within another app while they're using it to talk to them, which means by definition they're on their phone instead of push, which you don't know if they're going to be on their phone when you send it or not. So what is retargeting? And this is retargeting specifically with mobile ads. So let's say you have all these users downloaded your app. You're going to define segments, and we'll get into it just now. But let's say that one of the segments is people who installed your app but haven't come back to it in 5 days. So those are the little yellow guys. If you're daltonic, whatever color you're seeing. One of the guys in our team is daltonic, so I'm just making sure. So let's say that's segment 8. All those users are going to have a unique identifier based on their phone, on their device ID. And whenever you're going to be, and this is in real-time bidding, so people like us, for example, we have the option to auction for an ad on a specific phone. So we're basically cross-checking, is this the same phone? Is this the same identifier within that group? And when that happens, love at first sight, within 5 milliseconds to be very precise, you actually pick the ad to show to that user based on what segment they're on. So in this case, if it's people who haven't tried, you're like, come back, come and check us out. We're actually really good. And then you have a deep link that takes them back to the right place in the app. The other thing you can do is, depending on the segment, you can be very granular. So you could say, if user who saw one type of product in my e-commerce app comes in at that time, then they are an identifier, and I'm going to take them back to a very similar product that is whatever that product is, and you bring them back with a deep link straight to that page. So you're not only making the ad relevant based on what they did before, but you're also making the landing page super relevant. So what do you need to think about when you do retargeting? So number one is, who do we retarget? You do not want to retarget like a lot of people have done on desktop, which you basically stalking the shit out of people by saying, you've been on this website, 2 minutes later, oh, let me show you that shoe again and again and again for like 3 months, because you're basically wasting money on a client that might organically convert on their own, or you're spending money for 3 months on a user that's obviously not going to convert. So the way we segment it for our clients is to look at, you have the new user who just installed the app, but they just installed, so you don't really know yet what they're going to do. So you don't want to waste money on that person until you find out, because they might organically move on. So they might move on into the passers-by, that we call passers-by, which is they're giving it a try, they're coming in and out, but they're not converting. They're either not buying anything, or they're not subscribing, or they're not running, or they're not doing exercise. You know, they should. And then those passers-by, they might become what we call the engaged user, which can be different things depending on your app, and you need to define those events and those KPIs. It's really important that you understand what an active user means for you and what value they bring for you. But throughout this process, they could drop into dormant. And that's what you don't want to happen, because when they drop into dormant, it might be that just after that they uninstall your app and then you lost them. So you want to get them just before that happens. So what we do is we only retarget the users if they're in the passers-by segment or in the dormant segment. The other guys are okay. You leave them alone for now till they move around. The when to retarget people is a big one. This graph is good because it kind of gives you an idea. This is the average dropout, what we call the dropout for Android, which means how quickly people drop out of the app. So you're going to have a lot of people install the app. After 1 day already, you're going to have a major drop in usage. And as it goes on, I mean, we say that you should look at activation on day 1, because it's usually day 1 tells you how many people are actually going to activate your app. And then you must look at retention within 30 days. Look at your monthly active user, as we call it, 30 days after the actual install. And then within 60 days, you can look at LTV almost, the lifetime value of a user, because it gives you an idea of how they're going to use the app, whether they're going to spend, how much they're going to spend. But you need to know all of that to know when to retarget the user, and you also need to know how they're using the app when they use it throughout the days of the week and the time of day to know when to retarget them. The way you can analyze that is by having a cohort. This is a cohort from one of our clients in our dashboard. But the most important thing is to have tracking in place, and Stephanie talked about that as well. You need to be tracking events so that you know when they happen, and so that you know who is actually leading those events, and so you can retarget them. And so you need to know your cohort to know, am I retargeting people on day 1, day 2? I mean, you can see very clearly that people drop out slowly over time. So you want to get them early enough, but not too early that you're wasting money. So how do you retarget those users? You basically, let's say they've seen this dress in your app. So you put them in a segment based on the dress that they looked at. They're only going to be retargeted again if they didn't buy the dress and didn't come back inside the app, if they stopped coming back, because then you're not reaching to them and you don't know whether they're interested or not. So they might still convert. So then you buy ad space, talking specifically about that dress, or even better, a similar dress, which is what I wanted to do, but my colleague said, you're going to make it too confusing if you've got all these different dresses showing up, or like a handbag or whatever, but you get the point. So it's not necessarily the same product, but the same category product. And then you have a deep link that brings them straight back into the app inside that product page, whatever that product was. And those products that are similar can rotate, and not only can they rotate, but you can make them ultra relevant by making sure you show the latest product. So let's say your user looked at your app 3 days ago, and they looked at that dress and they didn't buy it. But since those 3 days, you have a similar product that came up that they haven't seen because it's brand new, and it wasn't there when they first looked at the app. That's when you want to bring them onto that product. So you're making it relevant, and you're making it, let's say, timely for them. So to recap quickly what we talked about, you basically want to make sure, because acquiring users is so hard and retaining them is so difficult, you just want to make sure you have everything in place before you look at this. But you can use retargeting as a means to try and leverage the acquired installs, I would say, not even users, which is trying to make sure that that super expensive channel that you have, whether it's you trying to reach out to users and getting people through, that they really give your product a chance. And if they don't use it, it's because it's not right for them, not because they just didn't give it time and didn't give it the light today. So summing up on Jampp quickly, as she said, I'm French-Brazilian and I live in Cape Town, although my colleagues will say I live on a plane. We are based in Argentina in terms of headquarters, which is similar to Stefan in terms of, don't limit yourself. When I joined, there were 5 of us. I was everywhere in the world. The one was in London and the other 3 were in Argentina. We've been a global company from day one. We thought a few things were bad, but they were all blessings in disguise because there are challenges around that. And now we do have offices, proper offices in London, San Francisco, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, of course, Berlin, and Cape Town. And we're opening Southeast Asia this year. These are some of the clients that we work with. The one thing about us to remember is we're non-gaming. So if you have a game, I'm sorry, we're not going to work together. But if you have a non-gaming app, then please do reach out to us. I mean, my colleagues, can you guys get up? My beautiful Mayo colleagues? Where are they? Okay, there's plenty of them. So you can come and reach out to us, and we're happy to answer any questions. And if I can help with anything, I'm Joe Picq on Twitter, and I'm sure they'll send details. Thank you.